Join us on a journey across the Plaid Prairie,
where the land is as
vast as the sky,
and the stories are as rich
as the soil.
In this episode, we delve into the life of Sharon Bakken, who spent her formative years in Crosby, North Dakota. After exploring jobs as a secretary and a veterinary lab technician, she found her calling in Denver, where she pursued education to become a court reporter, a profession she has dedicated herself to since the 1970s. Sharon recounts anecdotes from her life, including amusing instances of people discovering her name in the North Dakota phone book and reaching out to inquire about jobs in the Bakken oil field. She tells a story about how a red suit and plaid shoes brought luck her way when her car broke down on the way to Williston. She also shares her secret to living a long and healthy life.
Sharon, tell me about your job.
I'm a freelance court reporter up in Minot.
Okay, what does that entail when you're sitting in a courtroom?
I don't go in a courtroom. I just freelance. I go into the lawyers' offices and do depositions. It's all the pre-trial discovery stuff.
Oh, okay.
And I do a couple conventions once in a while. I've been doing the Knights of Columbus convention for 41 years.
Taking notes for them?
Yep. Taking down their business meetings.
Well, I was just going to ask you how long you've been doing that job. I guess maybe that answers.
Since November of 1977.
Wow.
Long time.
So you're a pro.
I don't know about that.
I'm picturing...
I'm not exactly professional.
Why not? You're getting paid to do it. Isn't that the definition?
Well, yeah, but I'm not a proper professional. I mean, I'm pretty laid back and say what I want.
I heard you also like to have a Coca-Cola with you at work.
Always. Keeps me awake.
Is that the secret to a long and healthy life?
Perhaps that and potato chips for breakfast.
There must be something to it because you don't look your age or act like it.
Well, I don't act like it, but I look it.
Matter of opinion, I guess. But someone had mentioned a story about Coca-Cola and your dad.
Yes, my dad used to. We didn't ever have it at home to drink. I mean, I didn't ever do it then, but he used it to take the rust off the plows. When there was rust on them, he'd pour it on and it takes the rust. So you can imagine what it does to my insides. It's preserving them.
Is that what it is?
Must be.
It must be doing something good in there. So court reporting, I picture stuff from TV of someone sitting at a little...
That's what it is, a little machine.
Yeah. Is it shorthand keyboard?
It's a machine shorthand. There's only, not all the letters of the alphabet are on the keyboard, but you can make every letter by using different combinations.
Wow.
Like the left hand is the TPH is an N. On the right hand, a PB would be an N. The vowels are on your thumbs. So like it's pretty much, I guess, verbal, like the sound of oo would be an AO. And so noon would be TP, you'd hit it all in one stroke. It's not like a typewriter, one letter at a time. You can hit all of them at once and it makes a line right across. I have an old machine. The new ones now don't use paper. Mine is like an adding machine paper type thing that comes out. And I'm just the dinosaur of the group. And when I went to school, they taught a lot of shorthands, things, words. And so like when somebody says, is that right? I can hit that in one stroke. The S for is, THA for that, and then on the right hand, the RT. Is that right? That kind of thing. I have phrases and stuff where I can shorten up things.
Things that are said frequently.
Right. Mm-hmm. Yep.
Where did you go to school?
In Denver.
To learn this shorthand?
Well, I was living in Denver at the time. I had moved around some, and I lived in Denver, and I was just working as a secretary at that time for a truck line. And I just decided I wanted to come back to North Dakota. Because when I went to Denver, it was beautiful. I could see the mountains every day. By the time I left, you could hardly see them ever because of the smog.
Wow.
And so I just wanted to come home. And so I decided to go do this. I had a high school classmate that had gone into this field. And so I decided I'd go to school at night. So I did that for a couple years, and then I quit my job and then finished up and did the daytime the whole day.
And then came back to North Dakota.
And then came back to North Dakota.
So you grew up in North Dakota?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, in Crosby.
How much of your life have you lived outside the state? So that time you were in Denver.
Well, I graduated from high school, and I left right away.
From Crosby?
Yeah, and I went to Minneapolis. Went to a 2-year school for medical technology, and then after that, I decided I did not want to work with people. It made me nervous, and so I went to Charles City, Iowa, to a feed company for animals and cattle, and they did all the testing for the government, for the USDA. And so I did all the blood work and everything, all the autopsies and all that stuff, and all the animals.
Wow.
And then the one doctor, he was trying an experimental operation. I think it was like on the ureter in rats, and his fingers were too big, so he was having a lot of trouble. He had to put a cannula into it and then hook it up or sew it up. And so then he taught me how to do it, and so I did it. After that, I was the one who was doing it. So my parents were surprised I ever went any place where there's an animal, because I didn't like animals.
Oh.
But
Yeah, interesting.
I went something different. After that, I went to California. I got a lot of bronchitis in Iowa because of all the humidity and stuff, so the doctor suggested I go someplace warmer. So I went to San Diego. I worked for a veterinarian there and helped him with his operations and did the blood work. And then I came back because I was engaged to a guy there. Then he went over to the Philippines, Navy, and went to the Philippines, and then he came back married, so I kind of left.
Oh my gosh.
I thought that was not very nice, but
Really not nice. What year was that?
Oh, I don't know. 65 or somewhere in there, 66,
Wow.
67, somewhere in that area.
married.
6 months maybe
Yeah.
or something. Yeah, I don't
Rude
know.
at best.
Yeah. So I had his car the whole time. It was a convertible, nice car, and I'd hit a rock on a fence, and so there's a little piece of chrome out of it, and I was going to get it fixed, but I was glad I hadn't then. That was
Yeah.
my revenge.
That was a good call.
That was it.
Wow. Holy cow.
But yeah, and in Denver, I worked as a secretary. So, and then I came back.
Were you driving yourself around when you moved from Iowa to California and to Denver?
No, I didn't even have a car.
Oh.
I went, this classmate of mine and I lived in together part of the time in Minneapolis, and we just walked. And then when I went to Iowa, I just caught a ride with another employee. And then my parents brought me down a car, a little Crosby. You don't see them anymore either. I wished I'd have kept it, but I didn't, of course. When I left, I sold it. But just a little tiny car, but it
I'm
worked.
sure it was exciting.
It worked, yep.
You tried a few different things, lived a few different places, but came back to North Dakota, and the career you landed on must have been a good one because you're still doing it.
Well, I'm still here. It's been good to me. It has,
Yeah.
I've enjoyed most of it. Some of it I haven't, but.
Yeah. Tell me about your family.
Well, I grew up in Crosby. I was born in Powers Lake because my dad was a teacher in country schools. And he taught in a school north of McGregor, and that's not too far from Powers Lake. And then my sister was older than me. She was 6 years older, and she was a baby when he was teaching school. And, well, grew up to 6 years, but she started school early because he was the teacher at the country school. And then my brother was, he's 7 years younger than I am. And that's the three of us. And my sister passed away in 1979. She was young, 44.
Oh my gosh.
But my mom and dad, they lived in Crosby all their life, except, they were in the country schools, but then they moved into Crosby for that. And we had a good time there. We could do, you could walk around and not worry about anybody like you can now. You can't do that in the cities, obviously. But Crosby, I think, is still pretty good. You don't have to worry so much. You never locked your doors or anything else. And after I left, after I was graduated from high school, they moved out to the farm where my grandfather had and lived there from then on. And then when my dad died, my mother moved into town again. So, but that was only 4 miles out. So,
Is Bakken your maiden name?
yes,
Okay.
and it's still my name.
Yeah.
I've never married.
Okay. I have 2 questions about that. Curious if there's any connection to the naming of the oil field. And
No,
Bakken.
unfortunately, there isn't. I wish there was. I said I always should have registered my name somehow so I would had some money coming in.
Yeah. Dang it.
But no, they're no relation or anything. There were some Bakkens that lived down by, well, I don't know why they named it that actually. If some other Bakken had some oil wells and that's where it came from. But Iverson from Tioga, their oil well was the first one that was ever there. And when the oil started with a big boom, I always had people calling me because my name was in the phone book, and they would call and ask if I was the Bakken that owned the Bakken oil field. And I said, if I was, you'd be talking to my people. And so I just told them, I asked them what they were looking for. I said, are you looking for a job? And they said, yeah. So I said, okay, what kind of job are you looking for? And so I'd give them the name of an oil company or whatever.
Oh, that's awesome.
But I did get a little concerned once because this guy wanted to know if he needed a CDL. And I said, yep, you will. And so about 3 months later, he called me and said, I have my CDL. Are there still jobs? And I said, yeah, there are. And I thought, God, I hope he doesn't show up my doorstep.
And were those the days where your address was also in the phone book?
Yes. Yep. Sure. Yep. And they called me at my office. They called there. But it was under my name. I had office and home, so.
Is Bakken Norwegian?
Mm-hmm.
So what do you know about that? Where is it, your grandparents?
My grandparents, on both sides, my dad's side and my mother's side, the men were both from Norway. Grandpa Bakken was from the Telemark region, and Grandpa Paulson was from the Oslo area. And they came over here and ended up in Iowa and Minnesota. Bakken was in Iowa and Paulson in Minnesota, and that's where they met their wives, was there. And then Paulson I'm not too familiar with because we haven't had much history on that. I just know that my mother was born in Portal.
You seem spunky. Where does that come from? Was your mom like that? Or
Yeah, she said what she wanted. She said whatever she wanted to. My dad was a little more laid back, but he spoke up too.
That's
no
always
question,
interesting to
but
me about an older generation like your parents,
Yeah.
because it maybe sometimes was the other way around.
Yeah,
So-
no, my mother, she worked, and my dad farmed, and he also worked in the winter.
What did your mom do for
so
work?
she worked as a dental technician
Oh.
at the dental office in Crosby, and that's about the only job I remember that I can remember is her doing that. And then, she later on she didn't work. She just did all the cooking and the baking and everything for the farm, and she did all that. She made bread a couple times a week, and because the sandwiches, and then we would always take a picnic basket out at noon and have a picnic out in the field.
With your dad?
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
Yep,
that's
yep.
cool.
So, and that was always fun. I thought it was fun. Of course, it was a lot of work for her.
Yeah, every day coming up
Yep.
with something to take
Yep.
out there.
So and then my sister, well, she helped, or started, she drove truck a little bit in the field. But then she fell asleep one day, and he had to walk clear across the field, and that was the end of that career for her. And I never even got a chance to do it because he said, you'll do the same thing. So my brother always worked with my dad, so he was the farmer in the group.
Oh, okay.
Now he trucks. But yeah.
What other chores did you have at home then if you didn't get a chance to drive truck?
Oh, I always had to clean. My mother was a very clean freak. You had to have everything in order. Even the closets, there no mess anywhere. When you had somebody over to play, you had to clean up everything before they left.
That's fair.
And in those days, we used to have a lot of house parties. The group that I was with in school, and we would have progressive house dinners.
What does that mean?
Well, one family, one mother would have the appetizers. Then we go to another house and have the main meal. Then we go to another house and have the dessert.
Oh, that's
So one mom didn't have to do it all.
that's
So we did
a
that.
great idea.
Yeah, we had a good time.
Did you have a driver's license in high school? Were you all riding together?
Well,
House
when
to
I
house?
was old enough,
Yeah.
I got a driver's license, but I didn't have a car to drive. One friend, her dad had a dealership, so she usually had a car. She had an old Model T type car, and we would ride with her and go over to Ambrose, which is 7 miles away, and drive up and down the street, which was probably 2 blocks. That was about it.
Everybody always did the dragging Mang
That
somewhere.
we did that in Crosby too. So yeah, we did.
2 blocks.
I got the
yeah.
car once in a while, but
Yeah.
You
Didn't
know.
matter so much if you have a
No.
friend with one.
we just got to. We always washed it. Back then you had chrome everywhere,
Sure.
so we did a lot of polishing of chrome. Had fun though. It was
Yeah.
good.
That's cool. Did you guys ever go up into Canada? Crosby's pretty close
Oh
to
yeah,
the border.
yeah.
right?
We went up to Estevan. Usually on the 4th of July, we always went up to Estevan, to the park there. And we also had a dam north of Crosby too that we went to.
Mm.
That's where our swimming hole was and things like that.
Cool.
So we went there, but yeah,
Sounds like a great spot to grow up.
it was. Yeah, I was a Brownie and a Girl Scout all my life, even through senior high school.
Cool.
I think there was 6 of us that were together.
Is
And,
there an equivalent of an Eagle Award? Or?
Yeah, there is, and I can't remember what it's called, but
Did you
I
do
got
it?
it. Yeah,
Did you?
I did. Yeah,
Cool.
yeah. And our leader was great, Mrs. Ingwalson, and she took us on a trip around North Dakota one summer. I think it was between our junior and senior year, if I remember right. I'm not positive, and we visited like all the big spots. And we even we were in Grand Forks, Fargo, and then Jamestown. We stopped at the home for the mentally ill, and we toured that.
Wow.
And we all about panicked on that day because we heard this woman screaming, and we were in the hallway and with the tour guide, and she came screaming down the hall, and she was red all the way up to her elbows. And we all thought, my God, she killed somebody. And we all kind of went, The tour guide said, no, they're just canning beets. And that's what it was. But, oh, man, was that scary. We were ready to get out of there. And we went to Medora. We were in Bismarck at the Capitol, and then we stopped in Medora
Wow.
and then home.
How long of a trip was that?
It was a
Must've-
week. Yeah, we drove a lot. But I think it was a week, maybe 10 days, but yeah.
Cool.
But we had a good time. And
Yeah.
she had taken us to Minneapolis one time, too, to a real nice hotel. And we got all dressed up and went to eat because she had showed us exactly what we were supposed to do for eating. And with all the forks. Yep. She showed us a lot of that stuff.
Cool.
She was a great lady.
Yeah. What did you say her last?
Ingwalson. Yeah, Ingwalson.
That's
Gloria Ingwalson. Hmm.
What was your first job? First paying job?
Well, I worked as a car hop at home one summer.
Cool.
I don't remember. That was when I was in high school. Is all I remember.
That was in Crosby?
Yeah, in
At
Crosby.
Some sort of a drive-in?
Yeah, we did. And I remember I did some bad, kind of got messed up there sometimes. This one car I ordered like 4 or 5 shakes, and those were the metal trays that had the little thing that you had to put on the outside and then get the metal tray on the window, the old time ones. And I didn't get something quite right because as I set it down, the milkshakes just all tipped over. Some inside the car, some outside the car.
Oh, no.
Not so good. I figured I'd be fired, but I wasn't. And then when it was lightning, they had little bitty rubber things on the trays, when it sat on the door, so it didn't hurt the door. And I was so worried about lightning hitting me, I would hold on to those little metal trays like that was going to save me. And I'd worked as an aide, a candy striper, that's what we called them, up at the hospital. That was from Girl Scouts. We decided to do that, but I was going to be a nurse, and after that, I decided no. I didn't want anything to do with that.
That's a tough job.
Yeah, kind of messy.
How long have you been living in Minot?
I've been there since November of '77. I've traveled some around the country, around the states. Used to go to a lot of coin shows because I met Tom, and then we went to a lot of coin shows.
Coin collection?
Yeah,
Collection
and where they sell them,
Okay.
And he's a dealer. He has a coin shop.
Where's he from?
Well, he's from Ohio originally, but he came in on the Air Force.
Oh, he's in Minot.
So he's in
He lives
Minot, yeah.
Okay.
So we went to different, Florida, L.A., some in North Dakota, Louisiana. I can't remember where else, and those were always fun.
How did you like
And
it?
Vegas, I loved Vegas. That was fun. I liked shopping there.
When were you there?
Oh, at different times
Okay.
through the years, but late 80s and 90s is probably when we did most of it, though. But he quit doing them because too many dealers were getting robbed and killed on their way to and from the airplane ports and stuff. So
Wow.
it was good at first, but, I always have to laugh because we had the Halliburton cases, which are real strong silver cases. And when we go, I'd sit on the case, on one case, and like that was really going to deter a robber.
Like you'd be at a show and you'd be sitting in
Well,
one?
no, waiting for a ride to the airport or from the airport to the show. Yeah. Like that was, I weighed a whole 107 pounds at that time. So
Was that a thing in Vegas or anywhere? That There
Anywhere.
were people getting
anywhere. Yeah. Florida,
Wow.
I know Florida, Tampa. That was one of our last ones we went to. And we weren't ever bothered, but there were some people that were, yeah.
Were you driving to those shows? With
No,
that stuff?
flying.
Okay.
Flying.
So and you could keep that with you?
Yes, we never
not like
checked.
you're gonna check
never
a bank.
checked those, no, because there's lots of money in those things. But yeah, so no, we always kept them. We each had one.
So what do you do in Minot for fun?
Not a whole lot. I do some golfing and stuff. I don't eat out a lot. I do a lot of cooking.
Do you?
I usually cook. I think my food's better than the restaurant, so once in a great while we go out, but very seldom. But I have a Coke when I get to the restaurant.
Sure. Are you a lefse maker?
Mm-mm.
No.
I've never made lefse in my life. My mother would never make it because when she was little, a young kid at home, her mother made it, and they made lefse, and she says, I don't want to see another bit. So just buy it.
There's some
I
good
make
stuff
the
out there.
Norwegian cookies,
What are those?
like Berliner concerts and sandbuckles.
I don't know about those.
And the sandbuckle looks like a little cup, kind of. It's in a tin. You have to press it you just do your fingers around and press it in the tin and make it small. And a Berliner concert is like a little, like the ribbons that they always have, the pink ribbons, that kind of shape.
Oh,
And then you roll them out and then flip them over, and then you dip them in some egg white and then into crushed loaf sugar.
ooh.
So they're really good. All the Norwegian cookies are butter and sugar, basically, with some flour.
Yummy.
The good stuff that puts the weight on, that
Does-
kind of thing.
does
And
that
then-
other one-
And krumkake, I made that too.
Ooh.
And those are the ones that roll up like a little roll.
Yes.
They look like a curling iron by the time they're done with. Some people fill them with things. I just eat them.
How do you bake those so that they stay rolled?
You have an iron, like a waffle iron, but it's a krumkake iron.
Oh.
And then you take it out and you roll real quick around a tube.
Oh, and then it cools
and when it gets partly cool, you slide the tube out and they stay like that.
It's literally like a curling iron for cookies.
Kind of.
I
It
didn't
is
realize
kind of,
that.
yeah.
Those are very good too.
But they're good. My mother, they used to make head cheese and blood sausage and all that. Rummerkraut. Ugh.
Did you eat that as a kid?
No, I refused.
Were you served that as a kid?
No, they didn't. She didn't make us eat it.
Oh, that's
Her
very
and my
nice.
dad ate it. The rest of us, I love lutefisk.
Do you?
I eat that, yeah. But I can't eat it anymore, so.
I want to hear more about your job. And I know you said you still use a paper machine for typing, but I'm curious what you have seen change in that job over time.
Some of the grandsons now are lawyers.
Oh, really? Of lawyers you used to work for?
Yes.
Oh, funny.
And then otherwise, it's pretty much the same except for the machine. And what they have now, I mean, I have the paper in it, but it has a disc in it that you put into the computer. But now they just, there is no paper. It just goes straight in to the disc. They do real time, which I don't do. And they have Zoom now, and I hate Zoom, so I don't do it. I just refuse.
For the deposition, they'll
Yep.
be doing a video chat? Oh.
Well, when COVID came, they started doing that. And I don't have the equipment. I wasn't going to buy the equipment, and I was too old to start doing it, and I don't like it. You can't see the people good. You can't hear them good sometimes. I mean, they've gotten a lot better now, so everybody else does them. I'm just a diehard that won't do it.
But you're still getting work, so.
Yeah, whatever. I mean, I do some. I'm not real busy like I used to be,
But
at all. But,
Do you want to be?
I don't want to be
Yeah.
either. No.
That's good. That machine you talk about with shorthand and there's a computer disk, when it gets put into the computer, does it get written out in full words and sentences?
It translates it.
Cool.
But you can't always, not everything doesn't translate, at least on mine. Some people are very good at it, but my fingers are all getting crooked from arthritis, and so I tend to kind of go over and hit a key. So you might have two letters together that's only supposed to be one. So I have to put those into the computer and tell it what it is, and you can job a lot of that into it.
Yeah.
But the other gals that are really good, they don't have to do near as much. But it puts it into English, what it can. Names and stuff you'll have to put in. Doesn't know everybody's name.
Sure.
And that kind of thing. So you do that.
Yeah. Just go through it and do
Just go through it and edit it on the computer, and then I print it out and I edit it again, and I have a proofreader. Because you don't always catch your own mistakes.
What would you tell yourself, your 30-year-old self, about life or work or anything?
That was about the age I started.
Is it? Okay.
No, I was in my late 20s, so I guess somewhere in there. But
At that time, how were you making connections? You say you were a freelance, so you weren't working for an attorney's office.
I worked for Emineth and Associates here in Bismarck.
Okay.
They were looking for a court reporter for Minot. They had one there, and then she left. She married a lawyer or something and left. And they needed somebody. It was right at the time, and there was that job, and then I was going to go to Glendive, Montana, and interview there. That was a court job. But then I came to Minot, and Al had me come up, and I came in the evening, and the next morning I took a deposition in Minot. Then I dictated it, because we used to dictate it. We didn't have the machines then. We just had, everything was manual. And so I dictated it and signed my certificate, and I went back to Denver that next day. And then he called me up and said, "You got a job if you want it." So I moved.
Nice.
And came up, and I've been associated with them ever since.
Okay.
Yeah. But it's freelancing as opposed to being in court. And that's,
I see.
the freelancing. I didn't do it all myself, but the lawyers just would call then. Once I was here, then they called. I had many, fun times with that, and I've messed up a few times for sure. We had one deposition. We had a big chemical fire up in Minot years ago, and they had a whole display with the building and the little pickup that was in there, and I had to mark the pickup. And we were on video, and there's like 5 or 6 attorneys on this case. And I put the little sticker, the exhibit sticker, on the hood of the pickup. It was just a little toy pickup. And then I didn't think it was quite tight enough, so I went like that, and all 4 wheels of the pickup just went all out. I busted it. And I know my jaw dropped to the floor. And one of the attorneys says, off the record, because they were all ready to fall apart laughing. They were laughing so hard. Haven't heard the end of that since. So Al and I glued it together and made it work for the next day.
I was picturing a Matchbox car, but obviously it wasn't that.
No, it's a little toy car about this big. A little tiny pickup. Yeah. I know there was one where, I don't know, the guy was he was farmer. He wasn't, he was just a little guy, and he was a nice guy, but he was in his 50s or 60s that I took his deposition of, and I don't remember what it was about, no idea. But he said something. It had to do with something about women, and I can't even remember what it was. I wish I'd have kept it. And he said one thing, and I was starting to laugh to myself. Then he said the next thing, and I absolutely came unglued. And that's why I'm not professional, because I fell apart laughing. And the attorney had to stop the deposition. He said, off the record, and I got that down. I laughed so hard, I had tears. It took 5 minutes for me to get grouped together.
And meanwhile, the guy who said it is just sitting there.
Well, and I told him, I said, I just didn't expect that from you. And I didn't. I just didn't expect that to happen.
So is that maybe a really good reason you are freelance and not in the court?
Well, thank God I am, right. I didn't want to be in court. I really didn't. Because I had enough working at the truck line of getting everybody's lunch and all that stuff. And that's kind of what they get stuck with in court.
Oh.
They were kind of a secretary also. Maybe in the big courts they aren't, but up in this area, a lot of them are. And I didn't want to have to do that. I didn't go to school to do that. I know once, years ago, we had a coroner's inquest. Not in Minot, it was in a little town. And they had to... The fellow had died in the pickup, and they were trying to decide if he had shot himself or what had happened. And so we had to go outside, and this was in the evening. So they had car lights shining onto the pickup, and then I sat on the running board of another pickup and had my machine here taking it down. That was interesting because the wind kind of came and blew a little bit. The paper was kind of going, but we made it through.
Made it work.
Yeah.
I never would have imagined you in the field doing that job.
So, well, you go where you have to go. Some places haven't been that great, but that was probably the weirdest one, I guess, is sitting outside in the pickup at night.
How long do you plan to keep working?
Well, I guess when my mind goes to hell. Or my fingers give out. One of the two. I don't know. It gets less every year.
Yeah.
So.
But that's maybe kind of nice.
But sometimes there isn't anybody else in Minot doing it, and Britta comes over from about 3 hours away.
But you're the only one in Minot.
Yeah, except the people in court. But they don't even have a court reporter. They just have the court recorders that run the machine. The machine. It's just sound. It's just mechanical now.
Wow.
On it. So sometimes they need somebody there, and if otherwise, no. I just haven't. I don't like sitting at home. I'm not a homebody. Mm-hmm. It drives me nuts to just look at four walls. I've got to get out and see some people.
Yeah.
I think when you quit too soon working, I just think that's when people die off. They have nothing to do. And their mind goes, and I don't want that to happen. Mm-hmm. I'm trying to protect it.
It's working.
Some of the attorneys might say that my mind has already gone, and I'm sure. One year I did meet Melvin Belli. He was a big attorney, huge attorney, out in California. He worked for the Stars, and he was also on, he represented Ruby, the guy who killed Oswald in the Kennedy thing.
Wow.
He represented him, and he was up here, and I didn't know he was going to be there until I walked in. And he was here on a trampoline case out at the base. Somebody had gotten hurt on a trampoline, and it was on that. And there was a local attorney here, too. But and I thought, when I saw him, I about passed out.
You knew him by sight?
Yeah. Yep. I knew who he was.
Interesting that he would be up here.
Yeah, I think he represented Errol Flynn in something and Mae West, all the old stars.
Wow. When was he up here?
Oh, that was one of the first years I was here. So it would have been early 80s. It was way, way back. Yeah, way, way back on it. But yeah. And I know I had one deposition where the lady was in California and her client was in California. And we were here and on the phone. And the attorney here and I. And this woman would never shut up. She would try to answer. Her client and her were both talking at the same time. And then the attorney here is trying to tell him one at a time, you can't take two people at once. And I was yelling at her. And when I said, I cannot take all these people, you're going to have to do one at a time. And that little, I'd like to call her names, but she said, well, you have two hands, don't you?
Oh, my gosh.
And instead of cursing her out at that point, I got up and I walked out of the room and slammed the door. As I'm walking out and slamming the door, I heard the attorney say, because she was still talking, I heard the attorney say, the court reporter has left the room. I went and walked up and down the hall a few times, and then I came back, and she didn't get any better, and the attorney here said, we're done.
Oh, man.
He said, there's no point in any of this. And there wasn't. So I know one of the gals that I had here that worked with me had been from California, and she said California attorneys were absolutely horrid. And I can see why. Because they were.
It was the attorney that made the two hands comment?
Uh-huh.
You
Yeah.
also have 2 feet.
A woman
You can
attorney,
move
yeah. And I mean, I just thought
Yeah. Wow.
I would call her names, but I probably shouldn't. I did, though. Not to her face.
I don't blame you. I would have too.
I'm a little too outspoken sometimes, but whatever.
Well, they're keeping you around, so.
Yeah. So
They
if
must
they don't,
not
if
like
they
it.
don't like what they've got, I can't help it.
Yeah.
You know, this is it. Joke. But no, I mean, I joke and talk and stuff. That's why I say I'm not what you would call a professional. You know,
Or maybe you're a fun
I'm just
professional.
me. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm just me.
Oh.
That's it.
So you left the room for a time after that experience, but have you ever left the room for another reason? Perhaps about where in the room you have to sit? Do they dictate
Oh,
that?
yes. No, I dictated. That's why I say I'm not so professional.
Because sometimes they want to tell you where to sit?
Yes. You know, I always sit between the witness and the lawyer. I usually like to have, if it's your lawyer, I like to have you and your lawyer on one side and then the other guy and his lawyer, and then I'm in the middle, and so I can tell, because I look at everybody. And a lot of times the lawyers come in, you know, after all these years, they'll come in and say, well, where do you want me to sit? Because
They know that you've got a
yes,
plan.
Yes. And there was another court reporter that came up and when I wasn't around, and she, as the lawyers came in, they asked her, where would you like us to sit? And she was stunned because she'd never had this happen. And they said, well, Sharon always tells us where we're supposed to sit.
That's great.
I was on my way to Williston, and this is many years ago. And we didn't have cell phones, and the car broke down. And I didn't know what to do. I was almost a Stanley, but not quite. And back in those days, I bought a lot of clothes in Vegas, so I had bright clothes. I had on a bright red suit and all my jewelry and my plaid shoes. They were purple, blue, and red plaid, and my little high heels and my purse to match.
Cool.
And I'm standing on the side of the road.
Near Stanley, North Dakota.
This guy stopped. He asked what my problem was. Well, I got a flat tire. I got no tire. And anyway, he said, he asked where I was going. I told him I needed to get going. And he said, I can give you a ride to Stanley. I said, fine. And I was telling afterwards that, you know, probably when I have to laugh now because I figure I probably looked like a hooker standing on the side of the road with this outfit on.
Not something you see every day.
Yeah, no. So, yeah, but it was fun.
Yeah. So when
He
you
was a
said-
nice guy.
Yeah.
He
that's-
took me to the dealership, and they
good.
gave me a car. How many dealerships would let you use a car now?
Wow. So you could get to Williston.
Yeah.
You were going for
Yeah.
work and
And then I came back and stopped there on my way back, and they said they wouldn't get the tire until next week because I was driving somebody else's car, and it was metric tires.
Mm.
And so they let me use the car
wow.
until it was ready and came back. You wouldn't find that these days.
No, and I was gonna say I don't know even about that, and you must have looked really sharp in that red suit.
I must have.
I think so. Do you have friends who ask you legal questions, or don't they see you in that light?
No, I think maybe a couple times somebody has asked me something. I just tell them, you need to do this or that, to get to an attorney. But if I think it's stupid, I just tell them, quit worrying about it. I had one divorce, older people, they were fighting over those blue jars that they used to have.
Oh man.
Well, I mean, really. And they had 3 Bibles, and they didn't know what to do with the 3rd Bible. My suggestion was if I had been able to say it, was rip it in half, each get a half. But, I can't do the things that Carol Burnett did in a skit.
Even if you wanted to.
Oh, yeah, but everything she did, I would love to do. It was the funniest thing. It was just cool. She had a court reporter skit.
Oh, really?
Yeah, you can get it on YouTube.
I'll have to look
You
that
can
up.
see it, but yeah, it was hilarious. But I know one of the court reporters in court, before I got here, he used to throw rubber bands at people, or shoot rubber bands, or throw pens. They told me, yeah.
For what reason?
When they were going too fast or something, he would do that. Of course, I found out he drank a lot too, but I mean...
Oh, boy.
I can see where court reporters turn into drunks, but I'm allergic to booze too, so I never got the chance to do that.
That's why you lean on the Coke and Lay's, maybe.
Yeah, there you go. That's it. That's mine.